Ukrainian crew reveals rare look inside HIMARS operations. Hromadske, the Ukrainian outlet, published an exclusive video report embedded with soldiers from Ukraine's 19th Rocket Artillery Brigade Svyata Varvara, one of the first Ukrainian units to receive the American-made high-mobility artillery rocket system back in 2022, documenting the launch process from the crew's perspective for the first time in this level of detail. HIMARS, built by Lockheed Martin and mounted on a wheeled truck chassis, fires precision-guided rockets that can reach targets tens of kilometers away, along with longer-range ATACMS ballistic missiles capable of striking targets up to roughly 300 kilometers (186 miles) from the launch point. The United States began delivering the system to Ukraine in June 2022, and it quickly became one of the defining weapons of that year's fighting, systematically destroying Russian ammunition depots, command posts, and logistics hubs in the weeks before Ukraine's counteroffensive retook territory across the Kherson region. According to Hromadske reporting, soldiers from the unit said Russian forces had grown accustomed to massing troops and equipment in the open at distances of 30 to 40 kilometers (19 to 25 miles) from the front line before HIMARS arrived, a habit the system's range and precision quickly punished, and crew members said they believed the weapon fundamentally altered the trajectory of the Kherson operation. The soldiers described HIMARS launches as a far more involved process than the weapon's reputation for speed might suggest, noting that a single rocket strike depends on a chain of people well beyond the vehicle's 2 or 3-person crew, coordinating targeting data, verifying coordinates, and clearing the launch before a single round leaves the tube. That coordination, according to the crew, has become fast enough that the time between receiving a strike order and actually firing can run as short as 2 to 3 minutes depending on the mission, though the unit's benchmark under normal conditions runs closer to 10 minutes. Accuracy remains the weapon's defining trait even after years of exposure to Russian electronic warfare and air defense systems built specifically to counter it. Crew members told Hromadske that Russian jamming and air defense have had only minimal effect on HIMARS strikes, describing any deviation from a target as measured in meters rather than anything larger, and said the vast majority of launches hit their intended targets. The soldiers credited the vehicle's onboard targeting computer, which calculates and inputs strike coordinates automatically, as the single most important piece of equipment in the launch sequence, more consequential to mission success than any other component on the truck. Life inside the vehicle itself carries an unexpectedly domestic quality for a weapon crews describe as central to Ukraine's long-range strike capability. Soldiers pointed to creature comforts built into the HIMARS cab, including air conditioning, heating, and an automatic transmission, comparing the experience to driving a well-equipped civilian vehicle rather than typical military hardware, and noted the system includes night vision-compatible lighting and a full instrument panel tracking pressure, fluids, fuel, brake, air, and battery charge. The vehicle's top speed is electronically capped at 100 kilometers h 62 miles per hour despite a speedometer that reads up to 120 kilometers h 75 miles per hour, a limit crews said they have tested but cannot exceed due to the vehicle's programmed speed limiter. That speed matters because HIMARS crews operate under a strict imperative to relocate immediately after firing, a doctrine known as shoot and scoot that has become essential to the weapon's survival on a modern battlefield increasingly dominated by drone surveillance and counter-battery fire. Soldiers described Russian retaliatory strikes following some launches, along with a noticeable escalation in the past year in Russian aerial reconnaissance drones tracking their movements, a threat they said has become significantly more pressing in recent operations than it was earlier in the war. The crew's colloquial name for HIMARS, hamsters, reflects the secrecy that once surrounded the system, a nod to how heavily Ukrainian forces guarded any public discussion of the weapon's early deployment and capabilities in 2022, when information about its use was deliberately scarce even as internet memes about the system spread widely across Ukrainian social media. That secrecy has not entirely faded, even as HIMARS has become a familiar fixture on the front line rather than the closely guarded mystery weapon it once was. Crew members noted that Ukraine's American partners continue to consult directly with HIMARS operators about the system's real-world performance, asking soldiers for feedback on technical issues and operational nuances that inform adjustments to other platforms in the field, an exchange the soldiers described as ongoing and genuinely two-directional rather than a one-time debrief. The unit also pointed to a shift in public attention toward Ukraine's newer domestically produced long-range weapons, particularly the FP-5 Flamingo cruise missile, which has drawn significant recent coverage due to its use striking targets deep inside Russian territory, while HIMARS continues performing largely the same battlefield role it always has, closer to the front and deliberately out of the spotlight. What comes through most clearly in the soldier's own account is not a system that has grown obsolete after 4 years of continuous use, but one that has simply become routine to the people who operate it daily, a transition from novelty weapon to reliable, unglamorous workhorse that mirrors how entire categories of Western-supplied hardware have settled into Ukraine's broader strategy.